So, hello, and welcome back to the Niner Nation podcast. I'm your host, Evan Nazareth, and I'm really excited to be joined by our University of North Carolina at Charlotte Chancellor today. Chancellor Gaber is the fifth ever leading member of our university and has been here since 2020. So that's really exciting. So welcome to the Niner Nation podcast, and thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. So there's so many things that people probably want to know, and I'm really excited to get to know that over the course of this interview. So one thing that I've always been really curious about is how exactly does someone become a chancellor of a university? I feel like it's a lot of steps to it.
There are a lot of steps. So it's kind of interesting because that wasn't my goal in life. I started out, I got my PhD and was a professor. And I did that for a number of years, and then I became a department chair, and then I became an associate dean, and then I became an associate provost. So you wind up, I was a faculty member, and I taught, and I loved being in the classroom, and then you start doing administration, and you kind of work your way up. And ultimately, the chief academic officer of a university is the provost. And so I was an interim provost at Auburn University, and then I became the provost at the University of Arkansas, and then I became a president at the University of Toledo in Ohio. And it's interesting because as I'm telling all this, it sounds like I'm bouncing from place to place. But if you think about it, those positions, there's only one on any campus. So if you want to be that position, you either wait for somebody to leave or you go somewhere else. So then the UNC Charlotte position became open, and I got a phone call and said, would you be interested in this? And it's kind of interesting because I was talking about I was a professor. That's how I started out. Well, my background, I was a professor of city planning. I went to school to learn how you plan cities. I worked for a city planning department at one point. I worked for a city economic development department. So they're telling me about Charlotte and the growing city and huge airport, connection between the university and the city by light rail. It's like a planner's dream, okay? So for me, I was like, well, let me check this out because I was very excited about the opportunity. So then I applied and was considered, and then the search for a chancellor is a lot of, you apply and they do an interview and then they bring finalists back and then they ask people their input. So, it's a lot of vetting of people to check on and see if they want you. So I feel very fortunate that I was selected, but it's a lot of steps just to get to that point.
Yeah, I'm sure. And as I was looking into you, I thought that was an interesting connection because I saw that you studied in research, and I was wondering how that appreciation of that probably led you to Charlotte.
It really did because I would think about in planning, and here's Charlotte and its growing metropolitan area. For me, it's exciting because we play a pivotal role in the growth of this city in this region. And I want to make sure we have all of those connection points and that we're doing all we can to help our students and help the community be able to shape the city as it continues to grow and to do great things. So that's a lot of what excited me about the opportunity.
That's great. Yeah. And I one of the things I noticed as well is during your time as chancellor, you came up with and we're here when Shape What's Next came out, which is our 10-year plan to help grow. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, that was my first year here, actually. And if you remember, it was a COVID year. But our prior strategic plan had expired, and that's part of by UNC system policy. You need to have a strategic plan. And it's a little tricky to do that during COVID, but we started that process. And we did, I can remember all sorts of virtual meetings and all the squares there and people getting input, and then we'd send it out and say, provide your feedback, and we got thousands of comments back on it. So it was really good, and part of it was putting together what is in effect an aspirational plan for where we want to go in a 10-year period. And I'm excited that we've achieved some of that in a shorter time period, which is fantastic. But it was a great way for me really to learn a lot about the university in my first year and to meet people and help shape, okay, what do we want to be? How do we want to do it? How do we want to talk about what the university wants to be? So that was really positive, but it was also hard because I hadn't had the time to be out and make connections as we're putting together the plan, really.
Yeah, but I'm sure you've had multiple times to be able to do that in your 5 years.
Right. We gathered a lot of feedback, and then sort of after COVID started to simmer down, then it was, okay, now I've got to be out meeting, talking to people, making sure we're making connections. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you get to do like exclusively as chancellor that's kind of really interesting about your role or what you love?
Well, I mean, I get to represent the university in a lot of formats, both in the community and at the state. So I think that's probably what is my role. One of the first things when we were putting together the strategic plan, I was also coming and meeting people, and I'd talk to people in the city, and I'd say, well, you've got this great research university. And they're like, but we want even more research. We want an R1, very high research university here. And we started looking into it, and what we found was the closest R1 university to the city of Charlotte. Do you know what it was?
I do not.
The closest R1 to the city of Charlotte was the University of South Carolina.
Wow.
Which is just so hard to wrap your head around. And the business leaders would say, okay, so when we're thinking about who's going to help us with research or what that looks like, I know you all do research, but you're not R1, so we turn to NC State or we turn to Chapel Hill. We really need that here. And then we started looking further, and if you look at the largest cities in the U.S., I think it's like all but 2 of them had R1 universities. And we were one of the 2 that city didn't have an R1. And it's like, okay, well, what are we doing? How do we work toward this to meet the needs of this city's business and economic development needs? And P.S. doing this helps our students and helps our faculty. So why wouldn't we think about saying that should be a priority for us? So, I mean, it was a set of conversations that led us that way. But when you were asking, what do I get to do that other people don't get to do? It's probably represent the university on some official functions. I think there are other fun things that like at football, there's a chancellor's suite that we get to have people there, or just, some, after the 9 are named, I get to meet with them. And, so there's
Yeah.
fun things that I get to do, but it's a lot of official business things.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's one of the reasons I chose this university as well, is I saw the huge research development and growth, and I thought it was really exciting when we heard about the R1 recently. And a lot of students were like, this is really empowering to feel that our degrees are and that the studies are progressing at this university. So that was amazing.
Excellent.
So yeah. Overall, what was your background really before Charlotte, and why at other universities? What did you get to accomplish? What were some of your biggest, proudest accomplishments over the years?
Yeah. So just prior to coming to Charlotte, I was the president at the University of Toledo, and that they actually just got R1 too, because I'd talked to them about the importance of it. But that school had a medical school, had a hospital, did work there sort of helping to raise the profile, increase student access. I was the provost at the University of Arkansas. That university actually became R1 while I was there. Research, there's a theme, right, going. But what I'd say is that university also helped just grow as that's the flagship and the land-grant university for Arkansas. And then prior to that, I was at Auburn University and had served as interim provost as my last position. Started out as a professor at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln, Nebraska. So I've sort of found my way around the country, which is kind of interesting because I grew up in Southern California. So there's a lot of travels that went there. But I think at every school you figure out what's the important connection and how do you assist with that. I mean, Fayetteville, Arkansas, there's not a need to connect as much with the business community as there is in Charlotte, North Carolina. So here I know we've got this wonderfully diverse business community, and all of our students are here thinking, maybe I want to work with one of those industries later on. So that's part of what we do, is make sure the connections exist.
Yeah, that's great. And that's one of the things I really like about colleges is each one kind of has their different culture
Absolutely.
about it and what they prioritize.
Right.
And that's one of the things I was really drawn to about Charlotte. So kind of tying into that, what has been one of your favorite memories just throughout your time at the university?
Favorite memories. We've done some pretty amazing things. I think I am very proud about the R1, but I also think we just kicked off a fundraising campaign to raise $500 million. And the steps that we're doing and the people that have contributed or said, yeah, I want to step up. You saw, for example, the College of Science is now the Klein College of Science. We start talking about, with your help, we can do more if you give us resources to assist. So the Klein family, and Fred Klein in particular, said, yeah, I'd like to do that. I'd like to give you resources, and then you name the college after me. So we do those sorts of things to honor people who have given us large sums for a naming opportunity. And then what's created are scholarships, new professorships, dean's funds to be able to do some things that they might not have otherwise been able to do. And that's what we're trying to do now, is continue to raise those resources. I mean, other fun things I think we've done, even when we had the birthday celebration, I think that was in 2020 or I'm trying to think about what year that was that we did the birthday right in the student union. But it was an amazing thing where students came out, or that sort of thing. Or naming of Mebane Hall was something that was a big deal and fun to be able to celebrate.
Awesome. Yeah. I think it's kind of funny how there's a lot of different things named. Like, because for example, I live in Belk Hall and I also work out in Belk Gym.
Yes.
And it's also a Belk scholarship, but that's great that we have that many donors who are willing to contribute these funds to help our students.
Well, and it is what actually helps schools. And I look at some even larger schools that have that sort of flexibility. It's what helps with travel grants and scholarships, and it helps our students be able to do things they might not otherwise be able to do.
That's fantastic. So what exactly do you think is your main why, and what makes you want to get up and lead every day and be excited?
Well, so my main why is I get excited to think about, we're doing great things here and we're changing lives. And if I can play a small role in that, it excites me that I am able to do that. Now, I recognize as the chancellor, it's not always a small role. Sometimes it's a large role. I have the good fortune of having kids who are now older than you. I mean, my son is 26. I've got a daughter that's 30. But they've spent a lot of time making sure I understand what young adults want and need, and that I push for that, and that I'm excited about it, and that, as I've seen students on campuses, and then I think about the connection to my own kids, it's like, how do we help them, be able to do great things? And what other things might we be able to do with resources, with good ideas, to be able to push things forward, to be able to help you get an internship, get a scholarship, have an opportunity you haven't had. Truist Bank is a partner with us. They've given us resources. They've given scholarships. They do a thing now at the bank in their innovation center that does design thinking. They bring a group of our students in to think about, here's the way you think. What is design thinking? You're an engineer. You know what design thinking is, but not everybody does, right? But that's kind of exciting that we created a relationship, and now they're bringing in groups of individuals to be able to think like that. That's going to help students be able to get a job, be able to succeed in the future. I mean, so take the why of I get excited to be able to think about helping, and then layer in my city planning background. University's like a big city. We've got 31,000 students, 4,000 employees. We've got a police force. We've got housing. We've got food. We've got buildings. We've got sewers and sanitation. And what happens as you think about all those pieces? And sometimes things aren't working quite right, and you've got to sort of help reorganize or think about how it works. So all of those pieces come together, and it's like, I love what I do. Now, I would be disingenuous if there weren't challenges, and those come up. And then I try to think about, okay, we've got this amazing team of people. It's not just me, but I mentioned, we've got a vice chancellor for student affairs and a vice chancellor for academic affairs and a vice chancellor for business affairs and a vice chancellor for advancement and intercollegiate. And the team I say, well, here's this issue. And everybody kind of comes at it from their perspective, and then we figure out, okay, here's how we're going to resolve that particular issue, which is fun to do, right? So even the challenges are sometimes fun opportunities to say, let's get together and figure out how do we work together to resolve a particular issue and make our university unique and better and supportive and helpful and really distinguished from some of the other universities that might not be doing that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And one of the things I think is really exciting about college is it really is an open canvas. Like, we have so many access to opportunities, and specifically with us, we have access to the city.
Yes.
Within a reasonable distance, but we're not like in it, but we can get to it. So
yes.
It's the best of both worlds. Because
Correct.
one of the things I really like about our campus is we have a lot of green space and stuff like that. So it's great to be able to just sit outside. But we also have the city, and being able to serve a lot of different community causes through different leadership programs we have on campus has been amazingly impactful.
Excellent.
And that's one of the things I think really anyone can really do as a student leader. Like, we're working right now. I'm in mentor for the Emerging Leaders program.
Okay.
And we're also partnering with something with Truist to help teach students these leadership curriculums and stuff like that, and being able to see those light bulb moments and watch them grow into active leaders within the Charlotte community and for the country in some cases is very impactful.
I agree. I mean, I think that's part of the role of higher ed is, it's not just about helping students find their job, it's helping them become citizens, right? So when you talk about leaders in the community, part of what you're doing is learning how do you have impact, how do you join the community. So I don't want to think about it's, we're just trying to help you find what's your first position. We're helping you think about how do I become a citizen of the world, of this community, and volunteerism and leading and working. And unfortunately, part of that is paying taxes and all of that. But it's what you wind up doing when you become a young adult and move on, right? So
yeah, it's about learning your passions, what you care about, what you love to work on, what you like to do. Exactly who your people are.
Yeah.
So I agree with that entirely. Awesome. So kind of going off that, what are some of your greatest recommendations for students in terms of like their growth and development? Anything that you really think organizationally or moment-wise that students should really take the time to do while here?
Oh, I think that's great. Well, I think most students do figure out how to navigate the city and go and spend time uptown. I also think, though, and not every student does it to the same degree, spend time with your faculty and actually talk to them. And I've talked to some students, they're like, I don't know if I'd want to do that. Faculty are in disciplines, and they spend their career and their life studying a particular thing and writing and doing research on that. So if you're interested in it or excited about it, think about who they can connect you to and who else, and follow up on that, because they generally actually know that really in-depth specific field, whether it's, building a bridge or whether it's marketing in a particular area or finance. And so the idea that faculty are somehow not people to approach, I think I want all of our students to make sure they're connecting and then figuring out what is the next person. If they say, well, you ought to talk to this person, go talk to them and see where that leads. Because a lot of our students then say, well, I talked to these 3 people and they've helped me now have a job interview or a connection or, an internship. And that's what's exciting about it.
I agree. Just the simple things of just getting to know people, whether it's students or faculty, is like amazing because you never know what's going to lead to what. For example, I never thought I'd be going into podcasting.
Right.
As an engineer.
Correct.
But it's something I really enjoy doing. And that came out of just the different connections I've had between students and faculty and getting to know people and get excited about that kind of stuff. Some people who I've worked with in engineering now work here in this office. So it's just amazing watching those ties.
Well, and I think sometimes, and it's probably often students as they're coming in. So by the time you're a junior or senior, a little more confident, a little more settled, but saying, well, I don't go to office hours because it makes me nervous, or I don't ask questions. You're here, do it. That's what we all want you to ask and get connected and find sort of what are the things, who are the people that can help you, because that's what we're all about. So
exactly.
I was going to tell a quick story. I had a student who emailed me who said, I read that you're the chancellor. I don't know what a chancellor is. I'd love to come talk to you about that. I'm like, come on in. Let's go. Come on in the office. I'll tell you what a chancellor does. And, I don't know that I can do that for 31,000 students, but a lot of times I try to respond. I'm like, yeah, I'll tell you about it. If you want to talk, let's come in. We'll spend a few minutes because I thought I love making connections and I love talking to people. So it's fun to do. And that was a student now. We stay in touch, He'll email and like, I'm going to do this. I'm like, great. That sounds like a good idea. I'm happy to do that sort of thing. So.
That's fantastic. And that's one of the huge beliefs I have is you don't know what you don't know. And
right.
Simply getting to know people, learn their experiences, and just see their perspective on what they have to share. And one of the things I really appreciated about when I was talking with Isaiah Grayson, who's our student body president, is that he's very open to feedback and willing to, and same with SGA and a lot of at least these other organizations, they're really willing to and want to see you involved and hear feedback so they can make things better.
Agreed. And, Isaiah and I meet once a month because as the SGA president, he comes in and meets with me. And actually, Dr. Bailey, the vice chancellor for student affairs, joins us. And part of it is he'll say, I had a meeting. Here's what they were asking about. I'd like some help on, can we get this done? Or are there ways we can accomplish this? And that's what his role is as an elected official for the students. And then our role is to figure out, if he were to come in and say, and we'd like every student to have a $100,000 scholarship. Well, I would too, but I'm not sure I can make that happen until we increase our endowment and that sort of thing. But if he says, well, there are some particular needs that we have, those are things that we've tried to figure out. How do we help with things? So, yeah.
And you never know what's going to come out of things because, like Isaiah and I met at a leadership training over the summer.
Okay.
Through the college, and it was very briefly, but I kept that. And a few months later, when I was thinking about connections, I was like, oh, he's a person I know, and I think he'd be beneficial. And I also see him all the time on campus through different things. We've had a lot of different good discussions about stuff for the student body and things like that.
Excellent.
So,
good.
Yeah. Do you have any really fun campus events that you really appreciate or get to spend time on? We've talked about football games a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, homecoming is always fun, I think. And I mean, lots of excitement, lots of both alums and students there. So that's always fun, and crowning the, head of the 909. Tonight is our alumni awards, actually. It's happening here in the Union, so I'll be back for that. So that is fun because we look at outstanding alums who have done remarkable things, and I think there's about 6 people getting awards tonight. So, I mean, those are fun events. I do things like I walk my dog on campus, and this is one of those things where you can appreciate, like, on the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday, I'm walking my dog around, and sometimes people will be like, hi, Chancellor Gaber. But a lot of times I'm looking like, what are things that don't look good or that we need to fix? And so I'm taking photos, and then I'll send it to my team, and they're like, please stop walking on campus, don't. But I want to pay attention and think about what can we do better or what doesn't look good? Like there was a time, we hadn't emptied the trash and it was sort of like piling out. I'm like, well, what happened here? Why? Well, so we changed some schedulers around so that we're sure we're emptying it so trash isn't flowing for the entire weekend or that sort of thing. Or there's stuff that needs painting or just cosmetic things. But I think there's stuff, we just passed a new master plan. So you talked about the strategic plan, but there's also a campus master plan that looks at the physical infrastructure and where are we going to build in the future. So I look at those sorts of things and think about that. Like, this coming summer, Sanford Hall is going to come down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's part of the master plan is, okay, that comes down. One of the things that's on the master plan is trying to create a bridge from there over the ravine that would get you so that you're not walking around, but actually a bridge that goes across so that that is a better connector to campus. So, that will start to fall into place. You have to have money, so we have to have money to do it, but that will start to emerge in the future.
That's awesome. And that's also something I think is great as a leader and something I like to live out as well is always figuring out how we can improve and not the saying this is the way things have been done or this is what it is, right? Yeah. That's fantastic that you're going out and actually noticing these things.
All the time,
yes. Even on the way here, I actually was very impressed that you were really taking the time to talk to a lot of different faculty and like actually help them out and things along those lines. So that's fantastic. We kind of talked about this a little bit, but are there any other specific long-term goals you have or plans that are really interesting and upcoming for the university?
Well, I think there always are. I think some of it is, funding requirements. The campaign, and I told you about the fundraising campaign. We have just announced it, which means we're halfway there. I want to get all the way there, so that's part of that. We'll continue to increase research because of the R1. And then we're looking at what are some of the degrees that we need to have going into the future. Sports analytics will start as a bachelor's degree. We've created a new AI institute on campus that we'll continue to promote. We have to be thinking what's out. AI clearly is out there. It's not going to go away. So we know that we're doing it in various locations. What we've done is put together an institute that says, okay, AI in business and AI in engineering and AI in computer science, and let's have an umbrella organization that's looking at how does this work cohesively together and how are we telling the story of the AI research and academic programming that we have to offer. So yes, we'll continue to sort of unveil and emerge, but it's just exciting, and I think along the way, then we'll continue to think about, okay, what has less demand? Maybe we keep it or continue it as a program with something else, and how do we continue to push for the areas that we need to make sure we're increasing?
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you.
I can always keep talking about the growth and appreciation I have for this city and this university because there is so much to it. I really like that we've had the light rail in the past few years in the gym and the union and everything's being renovated to improve the quality of campus and life for our students.
Well, and if you look at Burson, go up the road and you can see there's sort of renovation, fencing around it and that sort of thing. That's going to have an expansion on it. Oh, wow. That comes out toward the street, and it'll have sort of a glass front so you can see what's going on in the building, which will be very nice. I think the next building after that will get renovated is Smith Hall, which was the original engineering building on campus before sort of the engineering campus emerged. So it's kind of like because of the state's capital budgeting, we have to say what are the buildings that will need some renovation, and then based on the funding, they'll select, okay, so here's what we have money for So Smith has been identified as the next building that will receive some renovation money. Yeah.
So what do you think are some of the most interesting things you've learned, either as chancellor or just about the university? Like, what are some of the things that really stick out to you about your job?
Oh, well, I mean, I learn things every day. So I think this university in particular, and remember there are 17 schools in the UNC system, 16 of them are universities. We're somewhat unique. I mean, NC State is an urban area. We're in an urban area. We're the urban research university. I love the light rail connection. I love that. I think because we are young and founded in 1946, as opposed to, 17 something, we are young and we're nimble, and that makes it exciting that we continue to evolve more rapidly than places that are really stuck in. You said the phrase a little while ago when people say, well, this is the way we've always done it. Yeah. And it's like, that drives me crazy when somebody says, okay, see, we've got something great in common. And we try not to say that. I mean, I know I don't say it, but even others around me try not to say it because we're relatively young. I mean, a university founded in 1946, that's probably, I don't know your grandparents' age, but it's probably like your grandparents. You still know them, they're still alive and they're still active, and we can continue to still be alive and active and continue to evolve to meet the needs. And I think that's what makes us sort of more unique than some of the other schools, is that we are that way and that we recognize we have to do that, as opposed to just like, nope, we're fixed. This is the way we do it. And I think that's kind of exciting because we can find new things and get excited about them and move them forward probably more rapidly than some of the other schools. So
yeah. I always have discussions with some of my friends and they're just like, I can't do this thing, and because it hasn't been done before. And I'm like, well, maybe you can.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because yes, there's things that haven't been achieved, and there's a way to find
Absolutely.
it and do it. Or there's someone who's possibly done it before.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it can be high stakes, high level, but if you take the time, put in the effort, and make a plan and actually care,
Yes.
then you can do it.
I wholeheartedly agree.
So yeah, that's fantastic. So have there been any other leadership experiences that have really changed your perspective, or things you appreciate as you were going along, building up in the various capacities you had as an educator and otherwise?
Well, I think it's interesting because, all of us, so you're young and you're watching, I mean, you are an emerging leader, but you're watching how people do things in different ways. And for me, my whole career was, okay, what do I like? What's really good? And then it's like, wow, that was a really bad idea. Like, okay, no, don't do that, right? And so that's kind of what I did. Like, their leaders have very different styles. I do like to be communicative, but I've seen some leaders who will talk, and gather a lot of input, but they can't circle around and put a bow on it and say, okay, we've reached an agreement. This is what we're going to do going forward. So I like to have conversations and bring people together, but also let's decide, and then collectively we're all moving forward in that direction. Now, if something interesting and unique comes out of that, we can explore that too. But what happens is when you can't bring it to we've decided this and we're moving forward, people continue to sort of circle around about it, and you spend a lot of energy on that. I'd rather say, okay, we've had those conversations, here's what we're doing, and let's move forward. Like, okay, good. I put together when I got here, and it's something I'd had at both two of my other stops, I have a Charlotte leadership team. So, in fact, they met this morning. We've got like 65 people, and so the chancellor, the vice chancellors, the associate vice chancellors, the deans. Prior to my being here, we hadn't gotten all those people together in one room to have conversations and hear the same sets of information. And information flows at different speeds and different rates. And when people don't hear information, they either make it up, right? Or they'll make up the narrative, or they, just kind of are like, I don't know, I'm not going to do anything, right? So it's better to keep people in the loop, informed, and kind of say, do you have any questions? Let's talk about what are the issues you see. So I've tried to bring a bigger group together to be able to hear, talk, know where we're going, knowing that part of the job of the group then is to share that so that we can all move forward collectively. So that's sort of my style, is like, let's get information, let's share information, and let's be clear that we want to all be on the same page and move forward.
I'm in wholehearted agreement with that.
We have just become friends. I love this. Okay. Really You're like, wait, we're going to, okay.
Because, I was talking with someone recently, and they were of the mentality of, we need to do things slow and do things right. But I'm more of the mentality, as in every decision needs to take a long time. But I'm more of the mentality of what you have, which is do it efficiently and do it right. Some things need to take a short amount of time. Some things need to take a long amount of time. But ultimately, you have to cause action.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that is...
We are friends now. Well, there are... you see it in every... You see it in politics, you see it in business, you see it at universities. There are people who have a hard time making decisions, right? Or to gather, a lot of times you have to gather input, you have to gather feedback, you have to refine the idea, and then, okay, let's decide and let's go, right? Yeah. Because for us to move forward and make progress, you have to have a decision. You have to know where you're going. You talked about the strategic plan. Ultimately, it's a written document that says we've gathered input, we've shared ideas, we've asked for feedback, and then we codified it. Our board of trustees approved it. This is what we're doing, right? Yes. So we've decided there, okay.
Yeah, because I'm all about you with the sharing information as well, because it is so key to be able to communicate, because it doesn't matter what individual caused it or what group caused it, because ultimately it's for the community.
Correct.
And and you see the effects of that trickle down in any capacity. The more open you share about it, the more open you talk about it.
Yes.
That's ultimately where the results are going to be.
I wholeheartely, and so I was telling you this group, and we brought in, the ombudsman, the police chief. It's residence life. And what was interesting is students, they report to they're in a college with a dean, but residence life for students who live on campus, they need to know those people. The deans need to know those people, because sometimes an academic advisor might hear an issue a student has that's related to both academics and their housing situation. Now they can work together. And previously, they were in different units that didn't necessarily interact. Residence life is in student affairs. A dean reports into academic affairs. Those have different vice chancellors. So my goal is, let's bring them all together. We're all in the same room. You know who they are now. You know their name. You know their face.
Work together.
Talk, right? Yeah, let's work.
Yeah.
Right. So that was the concept there.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Getting down to our last two questions.
Okay.
What has been the most rewarding aspect of working at the university?
Oh, people are the most rewarding aspect any time. And I love talking to people. So when I get to do graduation and somebody walks across the stage and they're like, I did it, they're mouthing and they're waving to their families. That's what I want for everybody. That's amazing. And some of the students who have emailed me in the past or had an issue or something, and they're like, hey, they'll whisper or they'll wave or something, or shake, I shake hands, but it's just, that's what it's all about, is seeing the connections that are made. And there's a lot of great people who work here. There's a lot of great students who go here. I think that's what gets me excited every day, and that's the reward of doing the job. So
that's fantastic. Yeah. And we have a lot of first-generation college students,
Yes, we
people
do.
coming in from all over the country to do cool things like
Yeah.
motorsports. I've had friends
Yes.
from like almost every state
Yeah.
who I've heard of who come here because
Yeah.
they really want to learn about that side because we're really close to the Charlotte Motor Speedway and other things. So that's really exciting as well.
Well, you know, we've had a couple NASCAR drivers that have gone
Several.
here to graduate. Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Overall, this has been a really exciting conversation. Really glad to have you here. But overall, what do you want people to take away most from our conversation?
Well, I hope they take away, first of all, that you and I now are friends, and that I mean, the chancellor. It's interesting because I think part of this was what is a chancellor and what do I do? I mean, I love this place. I love the students. I love the faculty, the staff. The people are what make it fantastic. But we continue to do great things, and we're going to keep pushing forward. And ultimately, you're going to graduate, and 10 years from now and 20 years from now, this university will keep growing and doing fantastic things. So our job is to make sure, and my job in particular, make sure that we're taking care of our people and continuing to help the university get even better so that the value of your degree is more worthwhile. And people, you know, someday you decide you want to work in Seattle and someone's like, UNC Charlotte, of course, that's a great university. You know, so wherever you are, people are recognizing this is one of the premier institutions in the country. I mean, we're excited to be the number 81 of public universities. So top 100, number 81, and you think about it, there are 50 states. So we're, if there are 2 great universities in every state, we're in that top amount. So I'm excited about that, but our goal is to continue to increase that and make it so that great university, great institution. And what I'd say is hopefully people who listen, I hope when I'm out on campus, people will say hello, and I love talking to people. So hopefully they just know I'm human now. Okay?
Yeah. And that's one of the things I'm always really excited about when people from other states are like, yes, I know Norm. Yes, I know the Niners.
Yes.
And yeah, obviously great to see more people going out knowing about our university.
Yeah.
And thank you so much. So that's our time for today. Thank you so much, Chancellor Gaber, for your service and truly being an active leader in the Charlotte community and for our students. Be sure to tune into our next episode and follow at Niner_Times and at the.Nazareth for updates on the podcast. So be sure to stay tuned. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned and go Niners.
Go Niners.